Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Dynasty Sports Channel. Today I'm bringing you guys my first full first round mock draft. But before we dive in, I want to remind you guys about the giveaway that I'm doing, where if we hit 1,000 subscribers before the NFL draft on April 25th, I'll be giving away 2 jerseys of your favorite draft picks to 2 subscribers. So make sure to hit that subscribe button down below and also comment. So without further ado, let's get into the mock draft. So with the first overall pick, I have the Tennessee Titans taking Cam Ward, quarterback from the University of Miami. I feel like this is a no-brainer pick for the Tennessee Titans. I think Cam Ward's truly the only difference-making quarterback who can come in day one and make all the players around him better. I think he might not fit exactly the Titans' scheme, but he's the clear-cut best quarterback in this draft, in my opinion. And the Titans, they need a quarterback. Will Levis, he wasn't enough this year. I think they'll probably give him a chance during training camp, but I think Cam Ward is the answer in Tennessee. Moving on to the second pick, the Cleveland Browns are going to take Travis Hunter. Excuse me, not Shedeur Sanders, Travis Hunter. I think that the Cleveland Browns are going to wait another year or so to draft a quarterback because they still have Deshaun Watson under contract, and that's a whole mess, and they're paying him a lot of money. So I think what they do is they wait to take quarterback, they bring in a free agent, or they keep Jameis Winston, whatever works for them, and they bring in Travis Hunter. I think Travis Hunter isn't going to play both ways in the NFL, but I'm not sure which way he's going to play, whether that be corner, receiver, safety, whatever. But I think for Cleveland, he can come in and be either a number 1 or number 2 receiver with Jerry Jeudy, who really came onto the scene this year for them, or he can be the opposite side corner to Denzel Ward, who I think he's dealt with some injuries recently, but he's still an elite corner when he's healthy. So I think Travis Hunter can come in day one and help the Browns as the best player in this draft. With the third pick, the New York Giants select Shedeur Sanders, quarterback from Colorado. So the reason I took Shedeur Sanders here for the Giants is because I believe this is Brian Daboll's last chance, no matter what. Unless he makes the playoffs, I believe he's fired. So might as well get yourself a quarterback, even though Shedeur Sanders probably isn't, the most amazing option. I think Shedeur Sanders is solid. He's a good game manager. And if you pair him with Malik Neighbors and an okay run game with Tracy and hopefully an improved offensive line, which they can probably do through free agency with Andrew Thomas, and I think we're still waiting for Evan Neal to take that next step. But this is Brian Daboll's last chance, along with their GM. I'm blanking on his name at the moment, but I think this is his last chance, both of their last chances. So they're going to swing for the fences, do everything that they can, and try and save their jobs. With the fourth pick, the New England Patriots select offensive lineman Will Campbell. Now look, I know what you're thinking. He's not worth the 4th overall pick. I don't necessarily disagree. I think that he is not worth a top 5 pick. Now you're saying, well, then why the heck did you draft him at number 4? I believe the Patriots will go after a receiver in free agency. I think they have the most cap space in the NFL. They'll either trade for a receiver or they'll sign one. They have the cap space for that. So I think they'll go out there and shore up the receiver room through free agency or trades and give Drake May that help. But now it's time for them to shore up the offensive line. And look, Will Campbell, he might not be a top 5, worth pick. But at this point, just take the best offensive lineman available and slide him in. He might be a guard, he might be a tackle. We don't know. But we do know that he can play. put him somewhere on the offensive line and just put Drake May in the best place to succeed. Just try and shore up the offense as much as you can. I think the Patriots defense was one of the worst defenses in the league this year. But they brought in Vrabel, who's a defensive-minded head coach. I know Vrabel, he's going to want to shore up the trenches, and he's going to take care of that defense and let Josh McDaniels and that offense just work. So I think this is a good pick for New England. This is a smart pick. It might be a little bit of a reach, but I think you got to do what you got to do if you're New England. So with the 5th pick, the Jacksonville Jaguars select Will Johnson, cornerback out of Michigan. Now, yes, he does have some injury concerns, but I believe he's the best corner in this draft. I think he's better at corner than Travis Hunter. And, a corner, he's an elite corner. And an elite cornerback, that's a lot of value. Yes, the Jaguars need defensive line, but I don't think they need edge. I can also see them going Mason Graham here, but I think they need to shore up that defensive back room. I think Will Johnson is a no-brainer. And they have Tyson Campbell, I believe, who's solid. So, pair Will Johnson with Tyson Campbell, and that's a solid corner duo. Will Johnson, he's versatile. He can play in the nickel. He can play outside. He can do whatever you need him to do. He's a defensive coordinator's, dream to have a corner. Yes, he has dealt with some injuries, and I think that's probably why he's fallen to number 5, because he's probably a top 3 player in this draft. But I think the Jaguars get very good value here at number 5 for him. Now here at number 6, the Las Vegas Raiders. Both quarterbacks are gone who are worth taking. So I think they just look at best player on the board, and that's got to be Abdul Carter. They got to take Abdul Carter here if he's on the board. He's head and shoulders probably the best player on the board. The only person I could probably see being in the same conversation is Mason Graham. But if you pair Abdul Carter with Max Crosby, that is an elite pass rushing duo. And here's the thing is, Abdul Carter, he is the clear-cut number 1 edge in this draft, and he's only been playing edge for 1 season. Prior to the season at Penn State, he was an off-ball linebacker. So he still has plenty of room to grow as an edge. He's still raw. People compare him a lot to Micah Parsons. I think he's slightly worse of a run defender, but I'm not going to exactly knock him on that because he's, making plays all the time. He's going to put up good numbers. And you pair him with, Max Crosby, that's just an absolute nightmare for opposing offensive coordinators and quarterbacks and offensive linemen. I just couldn't imagine those two teeing off on a quarterback. Just absolutely terrifying. So now here at 7, the New York Jets. That is who it is. They need quarterback badly. I think Aaron Rodgers moves on this offseason. But none of the quarterbacks that are available are worth taking at number 7. So once again, we're going to go to BPA, and they're going to take Mason Graham. Pair him with Quinnen Williams, Jermaine Johnson, who really can't stay healthy. I think, that's a really solid D-line. Give Aaron Glenn, who they just recently hired, yesterday, who he was the defensive coordinator of the Detroit Lions, and I think he did a really good job this season. The Lions, they were all beat up on defense. They had a bunch of people on IR, and they still had a really, really good defense. So I think Aaron Glenn has a chance to do good things in New York, and I think starting with Mason Graham is a great idea. Now, not to take up too much time, I'm going to fly through these next couple of picks. So at number 8 here, the Carolina Panthers select. I think they have him under linebacker. Jalen Walker. I know that people are probably going to get upset at this. Jalen Walker, he played off-ball linebacker at Georgia this year. Jalen Walker is probably a top 2 football player at the University of Georgia. It's probably him and Malachi Starks are the top 2 football players at Georgia this year. and he was probably their best edge defender, but they're just so deep at edge that they decided to play him at linebacker because he's just that freaky of an athlete. He's honestly, I think if he played the full year at edge, he'd be battling Abdul Carter for that number one edge spot. I think Jalen Walker fits the style of defense and style of pass rusher that the Panthers look for. I mean, the Panthers were third. They had the third least amount of sacks this year. So they need a pass rusher, and they need a pass rusher badly. I think Jalen Walker, although he's raw, I think he can come in and make an impact day one for the Carolina Panthers. Now at 9, the New Orleans Saints, they are going another Georgia player, Mykel Williams. Mykel Williams, I think he wasn't as good as people anticipated him to be, but he's a very raw prospect, and I believe the New Orleans Saints will like that. They need help out along the D-line. Mykel Williams, I think he's a very versatile piece. I think he can play, edge, 3-tech if needed. Sometimes 4-tech. He can do all those different things. He's a very versatile piece. I know that the Saints have recently spent some draft capital on the D-line these last couple of years, but Mykel Williams has a chance to be a special football player. I believe the Saints are going to bank on that here. Now, this is where things start to get a little crazy. So, the Chicago Bears, yesterday or 2 days ago, they hired Ben Johnson, the former Lions offensive coordinator. And the one thing that he loved to do is he loved to run the football. Yes, he has DeAndre Swift. I think he's still under contract. But you don't go from David Montgomery and Jahmyr Gibbs to DeAndre Swift. So at the 10th pick, the Chicago Bears select Ashton Jeanty. Some people might scoff at this, or some people might be like, oh, that's actually a really good pick. I think it's a good pick for the Chicago Bears. If it gives them a serious run game, that could help Caleb Williams, play action, just hand it off. I think this pick is all about helping Caleb Williams. Now I know a lot of people will argue offensive line, and I agree, their offensive line sucked. But I'm sure that they can probably go fill some of those holes in free agency, and they can also fill some of those holes later in the draft. This is a deep offensive line class, I believe, especially at tackle. I think that this is a good pick for the Chicago Bears, taking Ashton Jeanty at number 10. I mean, we saw the Detroit Lions take Jahmyr Gibbs, 8 or something like that 2 years ago? And I'd argue that Ashton Jeanty's a better prospect than what Jahmyr Gibbs was. So I wouldn't scoff at that. And I think this is a good pick for the Chicago Bears. Now, moving on quickly to number 11, we're going to take probably the most obvious pick so far of the draft, and that's Kelvin Banks to the San Francisco 49ers. Since the 49ers, they're getting old, especially up front. I think they have Dominic, I think his name's Pooney, something like that. He's from Kansas, I believe. I believe he's their right tackle. Trent Williams, he's one of the oldest players in the league. Draft Kelvin Banks is his successor here. He could either play, or here's the thing. Let's say Trent Williams doesn't decide to retire this year. He decides to play another year or two. Kelvin Banks, he can come in and slide in at guard if he has to and learn. Do what the Cowboys did with Tyron Smith and Tyler Smith, and have Tyler Smith learn under Tyron Smith by playing guard next to Tyron Smith. And then Tyler Smith ended up being an all-pro guard, and so they're just keeping him there. So that's what I think the 49ers should do here. Obviously, I think this is an obvious pick. Nobody should be surprised by this. Moving on to number 12, the Dallas Cowboys. This is probably going to be my favorite pick of the draft if this happens, because I'm a Dallas Cowboys fan. I want Ted McMillan in Dallas so bad. I didn't do this to where he would fall at number 12. I just picked how I did, and it just happened. This was not an influence. It just so happened to happen. This reminds me of 2020 with CeeDee Lamb, because CeeDee Lamb was my favorite player in the 2020 NFL draft, and he fell to Dallas. I could see this happening. Speaking of CeeDee Lamb, give CeeDee Lamb a Robin, and oh my goodness. if you can get CeeDee Lamb in single coverage 90% of the time, he's probably, I mean, because CeeDee Lamb's already a top 3 receiver in the league. And we saw him with, Cooper Rush this year, and he was still top 3, and he was hurt half the year. If you can get him somebody who can take the attention off of him, just get him one-on-one in the slot against safeties and linebackers, oh my goodness, it's barbecue chicken all day. And here's the thing, if they decide to double team him, you've got, 6-foot-something Ted McMillan. Hey, Dak Prescott, just throw the go ball, which I think is an underrated part of Dak Prescott's game. I mean, Ted McMillan reminds me of Mike Evans. You pair Mike Evans and CeeDee Lamb, oh my goodness. That's a disgusting duo. I think this would be an incredible pick for the Cowboys. Now, moving on to number 13, the Miami Dolphins. I think the pick here is obvious. They got to go Malachi Starks. They're losing potentially Javon Holland. They're probably going to move on from Jordan Poyer because he's also a free agent. And I talked to a couple of Dolphins fans. They said that, Javon Holland might have been the worst safety in the league this year. And if he wasn't, then it was Jordan Poyer. I think they probably bring Holland back because I think Holland wants to be in Miami. But pair Malachi Starks with Javon Holland, and that's also a disgusting duo if Javon Holland can figure it out again. Because when Javon Holland is on, he's on. And it's pretty scary to watch. Now imagine these two back there. That would be incredible. Now I know safety is a little bit of an underrated position. Or I wouldn't say underrated, but it's like the running back of the defense. It's not highly valued. But Malachi Starks is that good of a prospect. I think he's one of the 6 or 7 blue chip prospects in this draft. And you're getting him at 13. I think that's incredible value. So moving on to number 14, the Indianapolis Colts. I think this is one of the more interesting picks in the draft. I have them going Tyler Warren here. They already have a nice room full of receivers. Their offensive line is okay. I mean, it's not great. They probably could go O-line, but I don't really see any O-linemen who are maybe worth 14 here at the moment. So, you might as well just get Anthony Richardson, probably the best weapon on the board. I think that's Tyler Warren. Get him a tight end who can block, can catch, plus Anthony Richardson, I think the verdict's still out on him. Just get Anthony Richardson the best possible supporting cast and just see what happens. And if Anthony Richardson isn't the guy, you trade him away and you get somebody else in it, and he also has an amazing supporting cast. So I think that's a no-brainer pick there. And once again, here we are with another no-brainer pick with the Atlanta Falcons taking James Pierce Jr. out of Tennessee. Coming into the year, James Pierce Jr., he was probably a projected top 3 to 5 pick. He was the number 1 projected edge in the draft. But he didn't have the year people expected, but by no means did he have a bad year. He didn't really put up great sack numbers, especially early in the season, but he was getting pressure on the quarterback all the time. Now, he's a little bit of a liability in the run game. Some people call him a situational pass rusher, but I think that's one of the most important parts of the game is pass rushing. So I think the Falcons get a really good pass rusher here, which is exactly what they need. The Falcons need a pass rusher so bad. I mean, they haven't had a good pass rusher since, Vic Beasley led the NFL in sacks, 5-6 years ago or something like that. I think they desperately get the help they need on defense. Now, speaking of help, I think the Arizona Cardinals need to take a left tackle, and they could potentially get the best one in the entire draft here at 16 in Josh Simmons. The reason why Josh Simmons fell this far is because he got injured early in the season. I think his injury could really scare away some teams. So that's why he fell as far as he did. But his upside is really, really interesting and intriguing. He could potentially be the best left tackle in this entire draft. But the reason why he fell is because of his injuries. And I think the Arizona Cardinals, they need tackle. I mean, Beachum, I think he's gone after this year, whether his contract's expire or not. I mean, maybe not gone, but I think they got to replace him. Because you got Paris Johnson at guard or at the other tackle. Give Kyler Murray a left tackle. Get Kyler Murray some help. Because if I believe that this is Kyler Murray's last year of I'm the guy. if he doesn't show that he's truly the guy this year, I think that they move on from Kyler Murray and they probably fire their head coach. So just get Kyler Murray as much help as you can. He's got some solid receivers and Marvin Harrison Jr. Trey McBride. I know he's a tight end, but when I say receiver, I mean pass catchers. He's got some solid receiving options. So just get some protection for him here. At number 17, the Cincinnati Bengals. I believe that they have to go edge here, and I have them taking Nick Scorton from Texas A&M. They just hired Al Golden to be their defensive coordinator. He was the defensive coordinator at Notre Dame who just played in the national championship this past season, and he led one of the best defenses in the entire country this year. I think that's a solid hire for the Bengals. And not to mention the Bengals' defense was absolutely terrible. Their defense was horrible. Granted, I do believe that it was kind of banged up and injured, especially in the back end, in the defensive backs room. But other than Trey Hendrickson, they had no other source of defensive line. Bring in Nick Scorton here, who I think he can make plays. He'd be a really, really good option next to Trey Hendrickson. I want to say that Trey Hendrickson is a free agent, but I mean, why wouldn't they bring him back? I think T. Higgins is gone, so I think receiver could be an option here. But you have Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase. The reason that they didn't make the reason why they didn't make the playoffs was because of how bad their defense was. So you got to shore up the defensive line. At pick 18, the Seattle Seahawks shore up the interior of their offensive line with, goodness gracious, where is he? Actually, let's do this. 1 second. Guard Tyler Booker from Alabama. I think that you got to bring Tyler Booker in. Their interior offensive line just was not good enough this year. And Charles Cross, he's a good left tackle. Other than that, I mean, you got Abraham Lucas, who was just bring somebody in at guard. Just try and shore up the offensive line. I think they have a solid defense, good D-back room. I mean, I think they need linebacker, but there's no linebacker worth taking here. This was a quick, easy pick. Now, speaking of easy pick, this is next pick in 19. Tampa Bay Buccaneers, Luther Burden. I mean, what are we doing here? This is a no-brainer pick. They're probably going to lose Godwin, plus he's coming off an injury. You got Mike Evans, who's getting old. Even if they do bring back Godwin, I think they probably could still take Luther Burden here, simply because this is how old they are. You got to get Baker Mayfield some more weapons. Baker Mayfield had a great year, but his receivers they're getting old. So you bring in Luther Burden and just see what happens. In 2 or 3 years, he'll probably be a receiver one. You can never have too many playmakers on offense. That's what I've learned as a coach, as a fan, especially a Cowboys fan. This past year, we only had one playmaker in CeeDee Lamb. Sorry, I'm reminiscing. Anyways, it's PTSD there. Moving on to pick number 20. The Denver Broncos select Benjamin Morrison, cornerback from Notre Dame. I really like this pick a lot for them. Give them somebody to pair with Pat Surtain, and especially somebody like Benjamin Morrison, who probably, if he doesn't get hurt early in the season, he's probably a top 10 pick. There's a lot of guys in this draft who got hurt early in the season, who are projected really high, who have fallen because of their injuries. But I believe all these people will be healthy by the time the season comes. So give the Broncos somebody to pair with Pat Surtain so he doesn't have to do it all by himself. Yeah, they have Riley, the white corner. Put him at nickel. I mean, he's solid, but just put him at nickel. Have Benjamin Morrison and Pat Surtain, your two outside corners. I mean, you're playing in the AFC. You got the Bills, you got the Chiefs, Ravens. You got the freaking Chargers. All teams who got good quarterbacks. You can never have too many good DBs. At 21, the Pittsburgh Steelers. I found out a very interesting stat the other day. Their left tackle, their starting left tackle, I could not tell you what his name is. He gave up the most sacks in the NFL. The Steelers, they're probably going to have a new quarterback this year. I believe Justin Fields walks. He probably goes to either like the Giants or the Jets or something like that. Somebody told me that Russell Wilson's done in Pittsburgh. I don't exactly believe that. I think he might have another year. They could go receiver here, but I think you got to shore up that left tackle position. So I'm going to go Josh Connerly from Oregon. I think that's a good pick for him. He's not the most insane left tackle in the world. He's not, Tyron Smith, who has crazy long arms and athleticism, but he's solid. He'll probably, his ceiling to me is a Pro Bowler. He'll probably never sniff an All-Pro, but he might make a Pro Bowl or two. That's probably his ceiling. But I think he also has a really low floor as well. So this is a solid pick for the Steelers. They have a young offensive line. They drafted Frazier last year, who was a really good pickup by them. He's their center. And you got Jones, their right tackle. You had a left tackle in there, and you have a really, really good future at the offensive line for whoever their next quarterback is. And this is a deep receiver class. I'm sure they can get a receiver in the second round. Now this right here, I know I've said there's been a lot of no-brainer picks in this mock draft, but this one's got to be the absolute biggest no-brainer of them all. Colson Loveland to the Los Angeles Chargers. It's just a match made in heaven. Harbaugh gets his prize tight end from college. Another weapon for Herbert. I know Herbert had another good tight end this year, but Loveland was probably the only bright spot on the Michigan offense. And the Michigan offense was absolutely horrible this year. And to say he even had success is absolutely insane. There's a chance he could be tight end 1 in this draft over Tyler Warren, but just because of how bad Michigan's offense was, he falls to tight end number 2. And here at pick number 22, Harbaugh gets his guy. But at 23, the Green Bay Packers, there's all the rumors of them trading away Jair Alexander, all this stuff. I think they still have Eric Stokes, but he's not real. I'm not gonna say he's cornerback 1 material. So I think they have to go out and they have to get corner, and they're gonna take the best one on the board, in my opinion. That's Siobhan Revell. This guy, he got another guy who got hurt mid-season, early in the season. He probably would have been a top 12 to 15 pick if he didn't get hurt. He'll probably be ready by the time the season comes. They need to shore up that cornerback room. That's been the story for the last 2 or 3 years. But speaking of a team whose cornerback room has been a weakness for the last couple of years, up until I'd probably say this last year because they brought in Stephon Gilmore, that's the Vikings. And I'm going to give them somebody that's just a match made in heaven. That's Jahdae Barron. This guy's a dog. Pair him up with Flores, and it's dangerous. It's dangerous in Minnesota. Because they lost Byron Murphy. Gilmore's a free agent, I believe. Oh, no, they still do have Byron Murphy. Excuse me. They still have Byron Murphy, Ambry Thomas. They have a couple of solid... Nashawn Wright, Cowboys legend. But, they have, Shaq Griffin, Gilmore. There's some solid names who are just past their prime in there. Just get a dog in there. Somebody young. He's a Thorpe winner. I got to see him play in person twice. First time in the SC Championship against Georgia. Second time in the Peach Bowl against Arizona State, and he's just a dog. But the next pick, the Houston Texans, I think they have to go with Emeka Egbuka here. Even though he was, oh no, I misclicked. Well, that sucks. As I was saying, sorry about that. Emeka Egbuka is the all-time leading receiver at Ohio State, even though he was never the receiver 1. But the Houston Texans need receiver pretty bad, in my opinion. Yes, they have Nico Collins, but Stephon Diggs, he's a free agent, and he's just coming off torn ACL. He'll probably go to Dallas in free agency. Tank Dell, he just horrifically tore his ACL again. So, he's going into his third year in the NFL, and he's already torn his ACL, I believe, 2 times. You need to get CJ Stroud some help in there and get him somebody who he's already familiar with, and that's Emeka Egbuka. I think this is a match made in heaven for the Houston Texans and Emeka Egbuka, setting up their franchise quarterback for success, who kind of had a sophomore slump this year, but it is what it is. Get him some help at receiver. They could go offensive line there as well, but it just seems to me that Emeka Egbuka is the no-brainer pick for the Houston Texans. Now, at number 26, the LA Rams. I have them taking somebody who you guys probably haven't heard before, and he's probably listed under tackle. The reason why you probably haven't heard about him ever before is because you can't say his name. And guess what? Neither can I. I'm not even going to try. We're just going to call him Jonah. Jonah, the offensive lineman from Arizona. I think he'll play guard in the NFL. He could play tackle because he played right tackle at Arizona this past year. He has the versatility. The LA Rams, they need offensive line badly. They just have a mid-offensive line all around. There's nothing great. There's nothing horrific about it. I think he could slide in immediately at guard. I mean, we saw how Jalen Carter just wrecked the interior offensive line of the Rams in the divisional round. Bring in Jonah, help Stafford, if he doesn't retire, that is, which I doubt he will, but, just keep your 105-year-old quarterback healthy and upright, and I think they can do that with Jonah here. At pick 27, the Baltimore Ravens, they take the best guy on the board, in my opinion, and on PFF's opinion. That's Mike Green, the defensive end from Marshall. If he played for a really big-name school, he'd probably be top 10 pick. But he went to Marshall, and he did what he had to. He did what he did, and that's dominate. He did what he was supposed to do, and he dominated the quote-unquote lesser talent, the group of 5 talent. He went in and absolutely dominated. He was at a prior program before. I'm not sure which one it was. But the Baltimore Ravens, I think they need edge. They have, Van Noy, I believe, who is their leader in sacks. He's 33 years old, going to be 34 next year. He's got 1 year left on his deal. He's on his last legs. You got, I think it was, Odafe Owe was their second leader in sacks. Was it Owe? Yeah, it was Odafe Owe. He was their second leader in sacks. Pair him with Mike Green, and that's an incredibly great and young pass rushing duo. Maybe let Mike Green sit for a year and learn under Van Noy, and then next year let him take over and just have 2 just absolute monsters rushing the passer. And at the Lions pick, I'm going to do a pick that I actually haven't done for them before. And I'm actually kind of surprised that nobody's done this pick for them. And that's Walter Nolan. I'm going to go Walter Nolan here for the Detroit Lions. Now, I know a very popular pick for them is edge, but give them Walter Nolan here. Walter Nolan is a versatile defensive lineman. I believe that he's probably the second best defensive tackle in this class, behind, obviously, Mason Graham. He transferred to Ole Miss from Texas A&M, still in the SEC, and he dominated at Ole Miss. Give the Detroit Lions defensive line Walter Nolan. I think that kind of takes it to the next level. I just don't really think there's many edges on the board who are amazing. I mean, you got Landon Jackson, you got Jack Sawyer, Shamar Stewart, and they all have good potential. But I'm not taking them over Walter Nolan at the end of the day. That's all I'm going to say. So now the Washington Commanders, who are playing the NFC Championship with their rookie quarterback, Jane Daniels, I have them taking Ariante Ursary here. They need offensive line. Keep your young quarterback upright and healthy. He already weighs, a $120 soaking wet. Keep him upright. Ursary, he's probably the best tackle left on the board. Once again, it might be a little bit of a reach. I mean, you probably get him, early to mid-second round. But just go ahead and take your offensive lineman here. He reminds me kind of the same thing as Connerly. I mean, maybe his floor is a little bit lower. He's a little bit more raw, I think. But I don't think you'll ever see him, in all-pro talks. He might make a Pro Bowl or two. I think he'll be a solid offensive lineman. But his bust potential is a little bit higher, which is why I have Connerly over Ursary. But you got to protect the goods in, Jaden Daniels. I think the receiver room is starting to come on a little bit. If Agbuka was here, I'd probably go Emeka Egbuka for the Washington Commanders. But he's not, so I'm going to go offensive tackle here. I'm going to go another defensive tackle here. But it's nobody that you see yet. It's going to be Derek Harmon from Oregon. This is actually a pretty popular pick for the Buffalo Bills. Usually it's just, D-tackle, but specifically Derek Harmon, he's a big guy. He can rush the passer extremely well. He can also stop the run. I think that's what the Bills have been missing. They've been missing that big guy in the middle. This is an easy pick for the Bills. Shore up that defense. They could go receiver here, but I don't think there's anybody, worth a darn for the Bills at receiver here. Just shore up that D-line. Go Harmon. And, you won't lose a second to sleep over it for the next 8 years. 8 to 10 years. So I ran this pick by an Eagles fan, and they absolutely loved it. So this pick has Eagle fan approval. Yes, I know. I'm a Cowboys fan, and I talked to some Eagles fans. I'm civil. And that pick is Cam Williams, offensive tackle from Texas. He plays right tackle. And now people are going to go, oh, hey, Lane Johnson plays right tackle. Lane Johnson is on his last legs. Bring in Cam Williams. Maybe let him learn under Lane Johnson for a year. Or maybe if Lane Johnson retires, you got to throw Cam Williams in day one. The one thing about Jalen Hurts, give him the best offensive line possible, give him the best weapons possible, and you'll win football games. That's what you got to do. I mean, Jalen Hurts, he's a tier 2, tier 3 quarterback, which isn't a bad thing. I know I might get attacked. That's still top 10 range, guys. That's lower top 10 range, but still top 10. He's still a top 10 quarterback. Yes, he's been banged up, but he wins. And that's really all that matters. Now, wins aren't a quarterback stat, they're a team stat. But, you see that they win more when he's at quarterback. And it is what it is. Keep him protected because he has been getting injured a lot recently, which I do believe is, starting to raise a little bit of concern. Not necessarily to replace him, but, just get the best offensive line in front of him. Have Cam Williams come in and either learn or start day one. Now, we finally made it to the last pick. For the last pick, I'm going to go a little bit of, what's the word? I'm going to go a little bit of a unconventional pick. I'm going to go Harold Fannin Jr. for the Kansas City Chiefs. Fannin Jr. just came off allegedly the best tight end season in college football ever. Travis Kelce, we all saw him in the AFC Championship, not the AFC Championship yet. We all saw him in the divisional round against the Texans. He's not very fast. He's losing his legs. He's probably got another one more year in him. Bring in Fannin Jr., let him learn under Kelce for a year. And then then Patrick Mahomes has his next amazing tight end for the next 8 to 10 years of his career. I think this is absolutely genius move for the Chiefs. I think Fannin Jr. is underrated. He's a great pass catcher. I'm not so sure about how he is as a blocker. But as long as he's willing, that's all that matters. Because, Travis Kelce isn't the best blocker, but he's willing. So I think that's an A-plus pick for the Chiefs. It's a little unconventional because they need an offensive tackle. It could go defensive tackle. It could go corner. It could go safety. But I went tight end here. With that being said, let me know down in the comments below what you guys liked, what you didn't like. And please like, subscribe, Because remember, guys, the giveaway. If we reach 1,000 subscribers, I'm giving away 2 jerseys to subscribers of any draft pick of their choice. And I want to do this for you guys really, really, really bad. Because remember, if you guys hit 2K, I'll give away 5 jerseys. But with that being said, that's the end of the video. I hope you guys have an amazing day. Thanks for watching.